Welcome to the Personal Computer Show. Today is October the 23rd, 2019. I'm Hank Key and my colleague is Joe King. Do you know who has your personal data? Do you know how Facebook, Google, and Amazon and the other big tech companies are using your personal data? Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, prn.fm, streaming on the Internet. Podcasts of the program is available on prn.fm on the Internet and pcradioshow.org. To listen to the live program on the telephone each Wednesday at 6 p.m., the number is 641-793-7091. You can leave me a message if you have any questions or comments at hank@pcradioshow.org. In the headlines, Android app SnapTube generating clicks and purchases hidden from users. The military has retired the 8-inch floppy disk. Yahoo Groups is downsizing its offering. Imaging Resource will be closing down early next year. Presenting Benjamin Rockwell with his IT Pro Series, Penetration Testing and Ethical Hacking. From the Tech Corner, TurboTax fight to stop Americans from filing the taxes for free. Technology perspectives from Marty Winston, living dangerously and cleverly with power tools. Another popular Android app caught defrauding users on a huge scale. The app this time is SnapTube, a video downloader that lets users select YouTube and Facebook videos to play offline. The app's developers claim more than 40 million users and has been installed many more times than that. The problem, it seems, is that while users are enjoying those videos, the app's software is busy doing other things in the background, essentially defrauding both users and advertisers to generate material financial returns. The disclosure against SnapTube has been made by researchers at Upstream who detected and blocked more than 70 million suspicious mobile transaction requests from SnapTube in stores on 4.4 million devices. And this was all inside a 6-month period. Such fraud tends to run in bursts, and the team seems to have been monitoring the app at the right time. According to Upstream, SnapTube has been delivering invisible ads, generating non-human clicks and purchases. The ads are hidden from users as they do not appear on screen. Generating returns from adware or click fraud is one thing, but the report claims that SnapTube has gone further to the triggering of premium calls and texts and subscribing users to paid services. Upstream has calculated that this fraudulent purchase of premium digital services would have cost users up to $91 million. SnapTube was developed by China-based Mobius Space. SnapTube, though, hasn't made the Play Store grade. YouTube's parent, Google, doesn't appear too keen on video downloader apps for obvious reasons. But Mobius Space still claims 40 million active users who have installed the app from third-party stores. Upstream described the SnapTube as literally a screen for the suspicious background activity. Under test conditions, they found not just background advertising click fraud, but also countless examples of users being signed up for premium digital services or subscriptions even when the phone is not in use. No notifications appear on the screen whatsoever, and the user has absolutely zero control. Down only from the Google Play Store to be on the safer side. The military has been practicing, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Last Thursday, as reported by the major media news services, the Department of Defense has retired the 8-inch floppy disk that was used to receive a presidential order to fire nuclear missiles. The computer, called Strategic Automated Command and Control System, or SACS, is an old system designed to receive nuclear force action messages and is considered unhackable. I searched the internet for more information on how credible is this information, After all, 8-inch floppy disks were replaced by the 5 1/4-inch floppy, and in turn the 3.5-inch floppy, and now it's no longer in use. And this goes back to the use of the 5 1/4-inch floppy in the mid-1970s in personal computing. The replacement of the 8-inch floppy was first reported in 2014. The same headline was repeated in 2016. I wasn't surprised to see it had been repeated in 2017. It's incredible that what was first announced in 2014 was repeated in 2019. Is the mainstream media just using this eye-catching headline for filler news, or the military takes this long to get what seems to be a simple, no-brainer task to complete? It turns out that the reporting in 2014, 2016, 2017, and now 2019 is all credible news. That is to say, the headlines in themselves were truthful, but not the full facts. You have to read the full news if it is available for the full facts. The headline with just a few short paragraphs may be accurate, but if the reporting does not go into the full information, that can and does distort the perception of news itself. The news that the 8-inch floppy was being replaced with careful reading refers to different functions over different periods of time. In one case, it was replacement of the 8-inch floppy on port expansion processors, portable terminals, and desktop terminals. At another time, it referred to the use of operational support of intercontinental ballistic missiles, nuclear bombers, and tanker support aircrafts. The announcement last week was the replacement of the 8-inch floppy to receive a presidential order to fire nuclear missiles. This piecemeal drip of news is distorting the overall news to replace all 8-inch floppy operation. We are told we now have the most modern military, equipped with the latest technologies. Is the 8-inch floppy still in use in the federal government? And if they are, when will they all be replaced? I'm afraid to ask if we're still using punch cards. Yahoo Groups is downsizing its offering. You may be a member of a Yahoo group, or you may be a moderator for a Yahoo group. Yahoo Groups is one of the world's largest collection of online discussion boards. It is a hybrid between an electronic mailing list and a threaded internet forum. Group messages can be read and posted by email or on the group's webpage like a web forum. Some groups are simply announcement bulletin boards to which only the group moderators can post, while others are discussion forums. Yahoo has made the decision to no longer allow users to upload content to the Yahoo Group site. Beginning October the 28th, you won't be able to upload any more content to the site, and as of December 14th, all previously posted content on the site will be permanently removed. You'll have until that date to save anything you've uploaded. What will happen to the site? The Yahoo Group site will continue to exist. However, all public groups will be made private or restricted. Any new group members will need to request an invite or be invited by an administrator. Admins will still be able to manage various group settings, though some functionality will be limited. What will happen on October the 28th? On that date, you will no longer be able to upload any content to the site. To share info with members of your groups, you'll continue to be able to do so via email. How can you keep your Yahoo Groups content? Photos and files can be saved right from the Yahoo Groups site, or you can download your data from the privacy dashboard. You'll still be able to communicate with your groups via email and search for private groups on the site. In addition, administrators will continue to have limited access to group settings and administrative tools. This downsizing of Yahoo Groups will change the dynamics in its use. When film was the de facto technology for photography, there were two magazines that were published monthly that covered the subject. There was Popular Photography and there was Modern Photography. With the emergence of digital photography, those two publications have since folded, and replacing them was dpreview.com and imagingresource.com. The information provided by these two websites is very comprehensive. The technical product reviews went beyond information from press releases. They are consumer-centric. Although their business model was based on ad revenue, they did not hesitate to give products that did not make the grade their thumbs down. After almost 22 years, Imaging Resource is set to wind down in early 2020. Imaging Resource made its official debut on April 1st, 1998. Back then, digital cameras were still starting to become a thing, and film cameras still dominated. The business was a typical startup by Dave Etchells, beginning in a spare bedroom, then migrating to the basement, and finally into his home in a separate house, tucked away in the woods, where they have operated since 2001. Dave Etchells released the following statement. They say all good things must come to an end, though tantalizing close to a quarter century when I first had the idea for it, I'm sorry to say that Imaging Resource, too, will likely be winding down early next year. The reasons for that decision are manyfold. For one thing, the camera industry itself has been contracting for quite a few years now. That's due in part to the arrival on the scene of high-quality camera phones, which, especially for many more casual photographers, negated the need to carry a separate device on which to capture their memories. But that's not the whole story. Just as significantly, modern digital cameras are reliable enough to last for years, and the image quality and performance they offer mean that photographers don't feel the urge to upgrade to newer models nearly as often. The days of buying a new camera every couple of years or so are by and large behind us, which, while great news for photographers, is bad news for the industry as a whole. In a shrinking market, the money is no longer there to finance our considerable efforts. And he went on to add, because it takes a lot of manpower and a spectacular amount of time to perform all of the lab work and real-world shooting, not to mention all of the writing for the sort of in-depth reviews that we've published over the past 2 decades, and even though we've worked to streamline the process, the money just isn't there to support a team of our size anymore. Time marches on, but although Imaging Resource may be leaving the scene, ImagingResource.com has left its mark. Presenting Benjamin Rockwell with his IT Pro Series, Penetration Testing and Ethical Hacking.
This is Benjamin Rockwell, and now is the time when we get down to business. Okay, it's a fun way of saying this is where I give you bits and pieces of my experience, my knowledge from being an IT professional for, nearly 30 years. Wow, just a lot of stuff I've dealt with. I'm going to take you back in time to a movie from, I think it was in the early 90s, a movie with Robert Redford and a number of Sidney Poitier, a number of fun people in that movie, and it was called Sneakers. And the idea of Sneakers, just on the very base level, I'm not going to get into the whole plot line, but it was the heroes of our story were paid to break into various places to prove out the various security systems. We refer to that today as penetration testing. The idea in the movie was presented that they broke into a bank to prove one of the things that the bank feared the most, that the bank could be broken into and that money could be stolen without anybody even knowing it. Now, we see this in a number of different forms. We recently heard about a courthouse that this is something that popped up in the news. A courthouse was broken into by 2 guys who were hired by a corporation who was hired by the courthouse to test the defenses of the courthouse and all of its records. Now, that got into a whole big, huge, scary mess where those 2 guys were arrested, and it's still up in the air because there's some question as to, well, were they supposed to be breaking in physically or breaking in electronically? And there's a lot of different discussion on that. And, I feel sad for the guys because they were outside contractors. So penetration testing is something that we have seen for a long time. It falls under the category of ethical hacking. And I've met a number of different pen testers over my career. I've also met, yes, some of the bad guys. So let's separate them out real quick. There's the black hat hackers, just like the old Western movies. The black hat hackers are the bad guys. They break in and they write various bits and pieces of software, and they enrich their own selves, their own lives, with millions of dollars that they steal via, yes, penetrating networks. The gray hat hackers, these are the folks in the middle. They're not really bad guys. They're exploring. They're not enriching their own lives. They're not stealing any money, but they're getting to the point where they could steal money. Oh, hey, check this out. I've gone all the way up to the virtual safe, and I am able to just grab these bits and pieces of money. Look at all this money. I've managed to break all of their different defenses and get to here. I'm going to leave it here, though, because all I'm interested in is the thrill of doing it. Wow. And that's a very interesting approach, and it's not illegal. And it's as legal as the black hat hackers, which is to say not at all, because they're violating various laws to do this. And we've seen this time and time again. There's some question as to whether Edward Snowden was performing in black hat, gray hat, or white hat hacking when he copied all of that information that was government information in the intent of being a whistleblower. So we kind of have to deal with a lot of this. So then there's the white hat hacker. The white hat hacker is the one who knows everything that the gray hat and the black hat know about. But they use their forces, they use their knowledge for good to defend against the black hat and the gray hat hackers. And it's, again, just like the Western movies where the villain wore a black hat, the hero, he wore the white hat, and everybody else wore gray hats. So a lot of the objective here, whenever we're doing penetration testing, is to identify the weaknesses and then document everything so that one can go back, and usually it's not the penetration tester, it's not the white hat hacker who's fixing it, it's somebody else who goes through and says, oh, okay, you got in through that door, let's change the locks on that door. Oh, you broke that window, so we'll put in, really super strong glass, or we'll even just make it so that it's not even a glass window anymore. We'll just board up that window, and wow, you're going to have a hard time getting through there. And then the white hat hacker comes along later on and finds more ways to get in. This is an ongoing issue, and it's something that we're going to see as just a basic practice for as far forward as I can see, because there are going to be people all the time who want to break into systems, and they're going to find different ways. Sometimes it's going to be that physical walk up to the door and just walk on through with some brazen attitude that they're entitled to get that information, even if they aren't. They know they aren't, but they're trying anyways. And there might be a matter of an attack that is social engineering. Hi, Susie. Yes, look, this is John up on the third floor, and I'm having a hard time getting onto my computer. Can you change my password for me? Yeah, let's change it to break-in 123. I mean, it's not like I'm breaking in, but hey, it's just a fun password. Oh, yeah, there's other ways to do it, too. There's breaking the software physically and also convincing somebody else to steal the information or change the information along the way. We can see this in a number of different movies over the years, whether we're talking about sneakers or hackers or Superman okay, maybe we shouldn't mention that one. This is Benjamin Rockwell. Back to you, Hank.
Thank you, Benjamin. Intuit began in the 1980s as an accounting software company. Intuit's QuickBooks accounting product remains a steady moneymaker, But in the last 20 years, TurboTax, its tax preparation product, has driven the company's steadily growing profits and made it a Wall Street darling. Back in 2008, TurboTax was a market leader, but only a small portion of Americans filed their taxes online. By 2019, nearly 40% of U.S. taxpayers filed online, and some 40 million of them did so with TurboTax, far more than any other product. TurboTax can have a problem if the U.S. government did what most wealthy companies did long ago and made tax filing simple and free for most citizens. For more than 20 years, Intuit has waged a covert war to prevent the government from doing just that. And that's according to an internal company and IRS documents and interviews with insiders. Internal presentations lay out company tactics for fighting encroachment, Intuit's catch-all term for any government initiative to make filing taxes easier, such as creating a free government filing system or pre-filling people's returns with payroll and other data the IRS already has. And if you think about it, when you file an income tax return, the government has all your personal financial information given to them by banks, brokerage companies, and other organizations. You don't really have to re-enter all that information by hand, and if you have it, it's really just a matter of you checking it and signing it and sending it in and sending them money if you owe any more money and waiting for the money to come back if money is due you. According to a confidential 2007 PowerPoint presentation from an Intuit Board of Directors meeting, the company's 2014 and 15 plan included manufacturing a third-party grassroots support. The centerpiece of Intuit's anti-encroachment strategy has been the Free File program, hatched 17 years ago in a moment of crisis for the company. Under the terms of an agreement with the federal government, Intuit and other commercial tax prep companies promised to provide free online filing to tens of millions of lower-income taxpayers. In exchange, the IRS pledged not to create a government-run system. Since Free File launch, Intuit has done everything it could to limit the program's reach while making sure the government stuck to its end of the deal. And all of this has been reported by ProPublica. Intuit added program steps to the Free File landing page of TurboTax that hid it from search engines like Google, making it very difficult for would-be users to find the Free File product. 12 years ago, Intuit launched its own free product, the similarly named free edition of TurboTax. This one comes with traps that can push customers that had been lured with the promise of free, and they end up paying some more than $200 for unnecessary charges. Free Edition was a smash hit for Intuit, and its pitch for free preparation remains core to the company's growth. Intuit knows it's deceiving its customers, and internal documents obtained by ProPublica shows this. The website lists free, 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 and customers are assuming that the return will be free, said a company PowerPoint presentation that reported the results of an analysis of customer calls this year. Customers are getting upset. An internal Intuit analysis of customer calls this year shows widespread customer confusion about ads for free TurboTax. Intuit also continues to use dark patterns, design tricks to get users of its website to do things they don't necessarily mean to do, to ensure that as many customers as possible pay. And this was a quote from former employees. An internal spokesman provided the following statement. We empower our customers to take control of their financial lives, which includes being in charge of their own tax preparation. The IRS is seemingly the biggest threat to Intuit and other commercial tax prep businesses, but it has more frequently acted as the industry's ally, defending the Free File program even in the face of critical internal reviews. Americans spend an estimated 1.7 billion hours and $31 billion doing their taxes each year. Just 2.8 million participated in the Free File program this year, down from 5.1 million who used the program at its peak in 2005. Intuit has dominated the tax software market since 1993, when for $225 million it bought ChipSoft, the San Diego-based company that created TurboTax. Even then, TurboTax was the most popular option, but Intuit pursued a plan of aggressive growth. The product necessarily came on a disc, and by the end of the 1990s, TurboTax boxes were nearly ubiquitous on shelves in office supply stores across the United States. As late as 2001, around 45 million Americans still fill out their tax forms on paper. For Intuit, those were all potential customers. But Intuit wasn't alone in seeing possibilities in the spread of high-speed internet. In Washington, lawmakers began pushing the IRS to modernize to get more taxpayers to file electronically. It was a no-brainer. Filing taxes online would be easier, and the IRS would save staff costs and processing paper returns. If the government succeeded in creating a system that allowed the vast majority of taxpayers to file online for free, TurboTax would go out of business. In 2002, the company found itself up against an unexpected foe in the George Bush administration. The threat came from a broad administration initiative to upgrade government technology. One of the proposals called for the IRS to develop an easy, no-cost option for taxpayers to file their tax return online. Without such an option, taxpayers were stuck, either filing on paper or to file electronically, paying a tax professional or software company like TurboTax. The technology wasn't all that complicated. Creating a free automated filing system would help tens of millions of Americans. This was seen as a low-cost, high-payoff initiative, and standing in the way was an industry that lives off the complexity of the tax code. Since 1999, as part of the company's strategy to head off encroachment, TurboTax had been offering free tax prep to the poorest filers. It was a program that served to bolster the company's arguments that government intervention was unnecessary. This became the basis for a deal. The industry would offer free tax prep to a larger portion of the taxpayers, and in exchange, the IRS would continue not to develop its own system. Intuit organized a coalition of tax prep companies under the name of Free File Alliance, and after negotiations with their IRS, the group agreed to provide free federal filing to 60% of taxpayers, or about 78 million people at the time. Government officials touted the solution as a marvel of public and private cooperation. Americans would get free tax prep, and it would cost the government almost nothing. What's more, free wasn't as unprofitable as it sounded. The alliance, guided by a lawyer who was also an Intuit lobbyist, won a series of concessions that made the program palatable to industry. Free File only required the companies to offer free federal returns. They could charge for other products. The state return was the most common, but they could also pitch loans, audit defenses, and even products that had nothing to do with taxes. Free File had another bright side. The companies could tailor their Free File offers so they didn't cut into their base of paying customers. The agreement said the industry had to offer free federal services to at least 60% of taxpayers, but each company individually only had to cover 10% of taxpayers. Intuit and others were free to limit their offers of free tax prep by age, income, or state. There was little incentive for the companies to publicize a free alternative to their paid products, and the IRS agreed that the Free File offers need only be listed on a special page of the agency's website. The first year of Free File was 2003, and for Intuit, things went well. On paper, the Free File Alliance was a collection of 17 companies, all of them vying to serve the American taxpayer. But in reality, it was a group made up of two giants and a bunch of little gnats. Intuit's only significant competitor was H&R Block, and even that, it was a distant second. The rest of the lines consisted mostly of tiny companies with names like free1040taxreturns.com, and as a result, Intuit could tailor its free file offer just the way it wanted. But the next year, Intuit began to lose control of its creation. Some of you might have heard about it, that there was a scrappy competitor, TaxAct, that's T-A-X-A-C-T, decided to use Free File to stand out. The company decided it would try to pick up as many new customers as possible and then charge them for ancillary services. Instead of following Intuit's lead and constraining its offer to a subset of low-income taxpayers, TaxAct went the opposite direction. Tax Act began advertising a pitch for free federal online tax preparation and e-filing for all taxpayers, no restrictions. Everyone qualifies. TurboTax offer on the free file page, meanwhile, was more difficult to parse. If you are eligible for EIC, which means Earned Income Credit, and if you were age 22 or younger, or you were age 62 or older, or military with a W-2. Hey, wait a minute. These were all the things that made it difficult. An internal document and current former company employees showed the companies steered customers away from the government-sponsored free option and made them pay. Tax Act ploy was a smashing success. The company's volume exploded. H&R Block tried to buy out Tax Act. The U.S. argued that by eliminating a competitor, the merger would create a duopoly of Intuit and H&R Block. Although the Justice Department ultimately blocked that takeover, the market has grown even more consolidated in recent years. In 2019, according to ProPublica analysis of IRS data, those two giants accounted for 81% of all individual returns that filed using tax prep software. On the defensive, Intuit and H&R Block matched Tax Act's no restrictions offer on free file. Americans rushed to file for free, and in 2005, 5 million people filed their taxes through the program. Free file has become the most popular way to file taxes online. Intuit viewed the popularity of free file as a serious threat and took its case to Congress. TurboTax told a House committee the program wasn't supposed to be for everyone. It was for the disadvantaged, underprivileged, and underserved taxpayer populations. Intuit's argument quickly gained traction at the IRS. In March 2005, the IRS had written to the Justice Department for legal advice on modifying the free file program. The agency wanted to know, would it run afoul of antitrust laws if the IRS barred companies in the Free File Alliance from offering a free product to everyone? The Justice Department responded in May of 2005 letter, any agreement among Alliance members to restrict such free service is likely a form of price fixing and thus illegal. But there was still a way for Intuit to get what it wanted, that if the IRS itself was to impose such a restriction, well, that would be legal. Now, wait a minute. So basically, to make it legal, instead of they doing it as a group, they have the IRS just say you can't do it. The IRS swooped in to beat back Intuit's competition, doing for Intuit what the company could not do on its own. That was purportedly available to 80 million. The IRS agreed the free file needed to be reined in. The agency made its reasoning clear in a previously unreported letter sent to the Free File Alliance. The head of electronic filing at the IRS wrote that there's been a huge jump in people using Free File in 2005, but no corresponding boom in people paying for tax prep. If this trend continued, the IRS was concerned that it could cause many vendors to go out of business. Free File represented a threat to future revenues and profits of publicly traded company participants. The IRS decided to remove this threat. The new agreement struck between the IRS and the Alliance in 2005 gave Intuit what it had sought. Companies were now expressly barred from offering free tax prep to everyone through the program. Instead, only taxpayers under an income cap, then $50,000 a year, would be eligible. On paper, the program's eligibility had actually increased to 70% of taxpayers, or about 93 million households, up from the previous 78 million. But in practice, because broad, easy-to-understand offers were now barred, it was clear the program's use would decline. After 2005, the Free File program was never again as popular, eventually falling to about half that year's level. But Tax Act's Free File gambit had forever transformed the industry. Advertising free was a great bait, so Tax Act took the battle to a different venue. Borrowing from making a free offer to everyone through Free File on the IRS website, Tax Act decided to make the offer on its own website in 2006. That's how they got around it. Intuit recognized a credible challenge from this upstart and countered the next year by launching TurboTax Free Edition on its own website. For customers who managed to qualify, the new commercial options offered by these companies were similar to what they could get on the IRS Free File website. The underlying software was the same, only the federal return was free, and the companies expected to make money on each customer through charging for a state tax return or other services. Well, that's how they made their money. Well, how Intuit stopped free filing from spreading? Frequently, free didn't mean free at all. Many who started in TurboTax Free Edition found that if their return required certain commonplace tax forms, they would have to upgrade to a paid edition in order to file. And then they use dark patterns. Dark patterns are something that are spoken of with great pride and encouraged in design at meetings. In the design world, dark patterns are tactics to get users to do something they don't necessarily mean to do. ProPublica previously documented dark patterns encountered by people trying to file their taxes for free. On TurboTax's homepage, for example, the company carefully chooses how it describes the different editions. Prominently featured next to Deluxe Edition, which costs around $100, is the phrase, "maximize your deductions." If users initially click on the Deluxe software, they are never offered the choice to go to the free edition, even if the no-cost option would produce the same result. Maximize your deduction was legendary at Intuit for its effectiveness in steering customers eligible for free file to buy the paid product, according to a former marketing staffer. The 2007 launch of Free Edition started a period of rapid growth for TurboTax. Within 2 years, use of its web products had almost doubled, and over the past decade, its website has grown each year by an average of 2 million more customers. The company reported this year that TurboTax Online had handled 32 million returns. In a statement, it said around a third of that number used Free Edition. The government's free file program, meanwhile, has mostly faded into the background, drowned out by Intuit and other companies' free offers. The IRS did try advertising campaigns, spending around $2 million some years to spread the word, but compared with the reach of Intuit, that was chump change. The company reported this year that it has spent $800 million on advertising. With its budget slashed by Congress, the IRS has spent no money at all to advertise the program in recent years. Hedging its bet, the company also sought to make sure that the IRS could not spend a single dollar creating a public filing system. Congress passed a 3,000-page appropriations bill that included a single sentence crucial to Intuit's financial future. No funds, the law decreed, could be used to provide to any person a proposed final return or statement. Despite free file's declining use, the IRS often claimed that the program was nevertheless meeting one of its original goals, driving more people to file electronically instead of on paper. In 2018, Intuit faced rare scrutiny from inside the IRS. The agency asked its advisory council and a group of outside experts to take stock of free file. To the company's alarm, it soon became apparent that the council's report might be sharply critical. That July, in 2018, the council chair and University of California Davis law professor Dennis Ventry wrote 2 pieces criticizing an Intuit-backed bill in Congress that would make the program permanent. His op-ed in The Hill was called "Free File Providers Scam Taxpayers. Congress Shouldn't Be Fooled." The IRS signed the new deal on October 31st, and 2 weeks later, the Advisory Council report was released with a damning indictment of the program. The IRS deficient oversight and performance standards for the Free File program put vulnerable taxpayers at risk, the report found. However, the IRS had it their way, and the expert body that recommended that the IRS negotiate a series of new provisions designed to increase the use and oversight of the program, including mandatory advertising by the companies. Well, they were very upset because the IRS ignored it, and it was too late. A new deal had already been signed with modest changes. As it had in the past, Intuit and the Alliance had effectively insulated the program from reform. The new deal included rules that barred free file companies from offering extra products to the relatively small number of users who access the program. This makes it much more difficult to convert those users into paying customers. The industry took steps to make the program more difficult to find. Both Intuit and H&R Block added code to their free file website that shield them from search engines such as Google. What is clear is that Intuit's business relies on keeping the use of free file low. The company has reportedly declined to say how many of its paying customers are eligible for that program, which is currently open to anyone who makes under $66,000. But based on publicly available data and statements by Intuit executives, ProPublica estimates that roughly 15 million paying TurboTax customers could have filed for free if they had found the free file program. That represents more than $1.5 billion in estimated revenue, or more than half the total that TurboTax generates. Those affected included retirees, students, people on disability, and minimum wage workers. Even as TurboTax business thrived, 2019 has been a rocky year for Intuit's long-running war against government encroachment. In April, the company was close to finally succeeding in its long-held goal to make free file permanent. A bill called the Taxpayer First Act was sailing towards almost unanimous approval in Congress. But after ProPublica published a series of stories about the program, including a story showing that military families and students were particularly affected by the bill, wound up being held up. Congress ultimately removed the provision that would have enshrined free file in law. The IRS Inspector General also launched an audit, which is ongoing. Other investigations and litigations followed, ranging from class action complaints alleging that customers had been deceived by Intuit's tactics to investigations and lawsuits by regulators and prosecutors. In New York and California, Intuit has denied wrongdoing, saying it has at all times been clear and fair with the customers. The company has returned to its old strategy: stay the course and take its case directly to the IRS and Congress. Its allies in the Senate have again advanced an appropriations bill would bar the IRS from developing its own tax filing system. This is our Congress working for the American people. Technology Perspectives from Marty Winston. Living dangerously and cleverly with power tools.
No, I haven't tried every power tool brand there is, but I've worked with a bunch. Rigid, Ryobi, Rockwell, Works, Milwaukee, Skill, Bosch, Dremel, Ego, Cobalt, Klein, a couple more. When I use them to do the things they were built to do, well, they're pretty awesome. But when I get some of them to do things they weren't built to do, well, yeah, I need to talk a little about living dangerously, and a little about living cleverly, and a little about learning by paying attention to other people's mistakes. Let me start with that dangerously part. I have and use work gloves, knee pads, eye protection, hearing protectors, and bonk on the head protection. I remember when I was younger getting teased about that. Hey, my son's saying I'm kind of a chicken, some kind of a dork. What I am is some kind of undamaged, not blind in either eye, no hearing loss in either ear, no lung diseases, no severed limbs or appendages, no concussions, not even any blisters, let alone calluses. Yes, being careful has helped me stay beautiful. Except, of course, when sometimes I'm not quite careful enough to stay beautiful. Let me give you an example. Say you wanted to bury some low-voltage wires in the yard. There's a company in New Zealand that adapted a steel chainsaw to do that, and it works pretty well. But hear me on this. Don't try it. No, do not try this. A chainsaw in the dirt can throw a lot of dirt, and a face full of mud is a really lucky outcome, because a chainsaw in the dirt can readily claw its way out of your control, and the results can be gory. But let's talk about that trenching job. There are trenching features on some edging tools, but they only go down an inch or two. There are purpose-built trenchers, including some with ways to feed the wire into the trench as you go. But they all cost at least thousands of dollars. There are hand tools for trenching. But the tool I like, and again, I urge you to use tons of caution and protection, is a cordless reciprocating saw with a 5 to 6 inch blade. It can make that deep a slit in the soil, doesn't get intimidated by tree roots, and has no problem making a tight curve to run wiring around something it can't cut, like big rocks. I like rigid Ryobi Skill and Works for that. Sometimes a saw isn't a saw. I had to cut the tapered part off of a section of pole so one of my weather stations could mount tightly to it. I had a great vise for clamping the pipe and a choice of saws, including some mini circular saws. What I decided to use instead was a Dremel SawMax. It doesn't use a sawtooth metal blade. It uses an abrasive wheel. The first time I touched its moving wheel to the pipe, the shower of sparks looked like a stream of water arching out of a garden hose and heading in the direction of a row of battery chargers. I had a scrap piece of plywood nearby and set it up as a shield. The shower of sparks was a lot less worrisome and a little more fun. The pipe quickly cut, and there wasn't so much as a small singe mark on the plywood. Power screwdrivers are a passion of mine, and the variety I have is both broad and well used. I have compact drivers, right-angle drivers, impulse drivers, hammer drivers, and more. They're from Skill, Rockwell, Dremel, Rigid, Ryobi, Works, and others. Some of them have those quick-load chucks that take fixed-diameter hex fittings. Some of them have a standard chuck that can handle the hex tips, but that also do much better work with standard kind of round, drill bits. So, of course, I have collections of tips of all sizes and shapes, and specialized tips, and specialized tip accessories. For example, I have a tip that looks like a small cylinder with slots in it, and it's wonderful for screwing and unscrewing wing nuts, screw eyes, and screw hooks. I have another similar but smaller one that's perfect for the screws used to hang the wires for suspended ceilings. I have extensions that effectively give hex bits more reach, some of them with magnets to help hold the bits, and some of them with sleeves to help hold the screw onto the bit when it gets started, then slide out of the way as it gets driven in. I have ultrasonic rulers and laser rulers and laser layout line casters from Klein, Ryobi, Skill, and Bosch. I have air compressors from Cobalt, Rigid, and Ryobi. I have blowers from Works and Ryobi, and I have vacuums from Ryobi, Skill, Works, and Bissell. I also have a Wagner steamer. None of these actually builds anything, but they do help tear apart some of the traditional reasons for getting yelled at after a build. Then there's the whole issue of reaching the place where the work has to happen. I have platform ladders from Werner and Little Giant, a 6-foot scaffold bench from Metaltech, a padded rolling lowrider seat from Mycanic, a step stool with a handle that folds into the top from Works, and all sorts of magnetic gizmos and wristbands to help keep hardware on hand and not let it make the floor turn crunchy. I have at least one spare charger and at least one spare battery from each of the tool brands I mentioned, meaning something like 10 chargers and 30 batteries in all. I have LED worksite lights that hang from hooks, sit on stands, wrap around my forehead, clamp to pipes, and more. Seeing what you're doing is, for me, a time-proven way to increase my odds of getting it right the first time. Because getting it wrong the first time costs time, costs materials, and often adds a new and unwelcome thing to fix item to my to-do list. I have a gorgeous, fabulous birchwood workbench from Sjobergs. That's spelled S-J-O-B-E-R-G-S, Sjobergs, with drawers and cabinet spaces underneath and 2 long vices on 2 sides. I have work holders from Works and from Dremel that, well, they work like specialized vices. I have an array of clamps that often substitute for the extra hands and arms that I never managed to grow. So a lot of the magic here is about the ancillary and accessory equipment, but there are also go-to items that handle specialized jobs splendidly. My hammer drills are the right way to make solid concrete or cinder blocks as easy to work with as soft wood. I should mention my power wrenches. Now, it's a motor housing a lot like a power screwdriver or power drill, except they turn more slowly, they apply more torque, and their fitting isn't a chuck. Their fitting looks like the square fitting on the ratchet wrench in your socket set. You put your socket on the fitting, put the fitting on your hardware, and let the power wrench apply more tightening or loosening muscle than your hands and arms could ever deliver quite so quickly and easily. I also have drill presses, a big one from Ryobi with laser guides, and a small one from Dremel for precisely placing smaller holes in more delicate materials. And I have sanders, polishers, drywall cutters, drywall screw guns, heat guns, PEX crimpers, and a motorized caulk gun. Most of those are from Rigid or Ryobi. Now, every tool that I mentioned is still in use here today. I'm still using them. Some are more than a decade old, but none are any older than that because the battery technology wasn't as good back then. And just about every brand I mentioned is at either Lowe's or Home Depot today. But no, these aren't all the tools I've ever had here. I'd hate to tell you how many Black & Decker tools wore out or died an early death. The Works tools of the last 2 years or so have been good quality stuff, but the older ones, not so much so. I've had 0 bad experiences with most of the other brands. They're keepers. Okay, listen, I know a lot of you are planning on buying tools as gifts, and maybe for other people, maybe just for you, so I'll name the brands of my keeper tools again. Bosch, Dremel, Klein Tools, Cobalt, Little Giant Ladders, Metal Tech Scaffolds, Milwaukee, Mycanic, Rigid, Rockwell, Ryobi, Sjobergs, Skill, Wagner, Werner Ladders, and Works, at least their newer tools. Next time I'll be going over some cool tech products for pets. Well, really mostly for dogs and cats. If you have a bird that barks too much, I get it. My mom owned a parrot. I just don't have any information about avian bark collars. Tech for pets. Next time. Sit. Stay.
Thank you, Marty. Computer club meetings in the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut tri-state region. The computer clubs have random access sessions at each of these club meetings. If you have any questions or need technical advice, the club members are more than happy to assist. There is no such thing as a dumb question. All these computer club meetings are open free to the public. The Brookdale Computer Users Group will have a presentation on the most common PC and Mac repair issues. Meeting will be on October the 24th. Meeting time is 6:45 p.m. And they meet in the Middletown Library Large Meeting Room, located at 55 New Monmouth Road in Middletown, New Jersey. The Amateur Computer Group of New Jersey meets November the 1st. Meeting time is 8 p.m., and they meet at the Scotch Plains Rescue Squad at 1916 Bartle Avenue in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Danbury Area Computer Society has their meeting on November the 5th. Meeting time is 7:30 p.m., and they meet at the Danbury Hackerspace at 158 Main Street in Danbury, Connecticut. The Westchester PC Users Group has their meeting on November the 7th. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Keller Williams Realty, 120 Bloomingdale Road in White Plains, New York. Long Island Macintosh Users Group will be meeting on November the 8th. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Harry J. Scher Hall, New York Institute of Technology, Old Westbury Campus, out in Old Westbury, New York. The New York Amateur Computer Club meets November the 14th. Meeting time is 7 p.m. at NYU Silver Building, room 411, 32 Waverly Place in Manhattan, New York. We hope to see you at one of these meetings, and if you have a computer club meeting you want me to announce on the air, send me a note. My address is hank@pcradioshow.org. Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm, streaming on the Internet. Podcasts of the programs available on prn.fm, on the Internet, and pcradioshow.org. If you have any questions for us, just send us an email addressed to hank@pcradioshow.org. There is no such thing as a stupid question. In the meantime, stay in touch and remember to do regular backups. I'm Hank Key, and on behalf of Joe King and Michael Horowitz, we thank you for listening. Stay safe and healthy, and until we meet again, same time, same station next week.